And every story can change the world. Together we are Global Speakers Talk.
Greetings and welcome to Global Speakers Talk Monthly Summit. I'm your host, JB Herrera. I'm the founder and CEO of Synergy AI, where we design values-driven AI ecosystems that amplify human brilliance for small and medium-sized businesses. And I have to tell you that this month's topic is one I've been thinking about for a long time, not just as a business owner, but as a human being who has lived it. The Great Reinvention, redesign your career. No, there's a question that I believe that sits at the heart of every major career turning point, and it's deceptively simple. When the career you've built no longer fits the person you've become, what do you actually do about it? So the question used to be personal, internal, something that you wrestled with quietly, maybe over a long weekend, maybe during a sleepless Tuesday night, maybe in conversation with somebody you trust. It was about alignment, about realizing that the work you're doing and the person you're becoming have started moving in different directions. And that question is still real. It's still powerful. Millions of people are sitting in that exact tension right now. But here's what's changed. Today, there's a second force at work, and it's not waiting for you to have your moment of clarity. Technology, particularly artificial intelligence, is reshaping entire industries, redefining roles and rewriting the rules of what careers even look like. Job descriptions that existed 5 years ago are disappearing. New ones are emerging that nobody trained for. And for a lot of people, the career that they built isn't just misaligned with who they've become, it's being transformed underneath them, whether they're ready or not. So now, that question has a twin. What do you do when reinvention isn't just a choice, but a reality that's been handed to you? Now, I know both versions of that question personally. I spent years at Apple, one of the most innovative companies on the planet, and I walked away. Not because the work wasn't meaningful, but because I realized that my values and my vision had grown beyond the role I was in. And I needed to build something of my own, something rooted in that belief that technology should amplify wisdom, not replace it. And that's what my company does. So today, what we're going to do is explore both sides of the equation. The inner reinvention, the courage that it takes to admit that what you've built no longer fits you, and that external reinvention, that strategic, structural, and deeply human work required to design your career in a world where the ground is shifting beneath everyone's feet. Now, we've assembled 5 extraordinary speakers to help us investigate this. They bring perspectives from leadership development, executive coaching, business law, neuroscience, and transformational inner work. And what connects all of them is the shared conviction. Reinvention is not something that happens to you, it's something you can learn to lead. So let's get to it. We're going to start with a big picture, because before we talk about personal reinvention, we need to understand the landscape that's demanding it. Industries are evolving. AI and automation are reshaping what workforce readiness even means. And the organizations that will thrive through this shift are the ones that invest in developing leaders who can adapt, not just once, but continuously. And our first speaker has spent his career at exactly that intersection. Dr. Benjamin Clinton is a leadership strategist working where education meets workforce readiness. As a former turnaround principal and district leader, he has helped organizations strengthen leadership culture and employee performance through practical systems and coaching. He's the founder of Beacon Administrative Consulting and the author of Teaching What Every Employer Wants. And his work is all about equipping leaders to build teams prepared for the demands of tomorrow's workforce. And I'm telling you, in a world where tomorrow's workforce is being redefined by technology faster than most training programs can keep up, that work has never been more urgent. So please welcome to the stage, Dr. Benjamin Clinton.
Thank you, JB. I want to start off by saying that I am honored to be here, honored to help open this summit, because reinvention is a theme that really is on a lot of people's minds. And it gets triggered in a lot of different ways. It starts with a setback in your personal life. Sometimes it gets triggered by, this quiet realization that your life's not going where you want it to go, but it's different for everybody. Is it okay if I tell my reinvention, the one that really sticks in my head? Yeah, for me, it was, I guess it started when I planted my foot in the ground, turned hard, and my cleat stayed stuck in the turf, and I heard a pop. I was 20 years old. I'd been living a dream, playing college football for Rice University. But in that moment, the direction that my life was headed changed. If you've ever had one of these moments, you know what I mean. Life before that moment feels like it's one way, and then life afterwards feels different. Not because everything changes overnight, but because something you know, something you'd planned is no longer the plan that you're living. For me, that meant that I dropped out of college. I had to make a living, so I went out and got a job managing a health club, Valley Total Fitness in Sharpstown in Houston, Texas. Pretty quickly, I realized that the tools that I had built weren't the tools that I was going to need to lead. I had a title. I was manager of this health club, but stepping in, I wasn't getting the training or the leadership development that I felt like I needed. So before I got my first paycheck, I walked into a used bookstore, half price books in Houston, and I bought a used leadership book off the shelf. $5. I went home and read that book overnight. I thought that that would set me up, but the idea that stuck with me was different. It taught me that growth happens daily, not in a day. Growth or leadership development is a process. Got me to be intentional, to look at what I wanted to grow and stick with it. You become the person that you want to be, whether it's running a health club or really any other reinvention, little by little, moment by moment, decision by decision, you intentionally build those habits. I think as I went on, I put that in place and made it my intention to continue to grow. One of the things that I noticed was that in the area, Sharpstown, that I was living in and working in, a large part of our population was Spanish speaking. I've been around it. I took the high school Spanish courses that you're supposed to take, but my Spanish language was not very good. But I had a salesperson, and he was a native speaker, and he tutored me. Day by day, I worked on it. I practiced it. We walked the club. We scripted things out. Y cuando mi español mejoró, pude conectar con mucha más gente. When my Spanish improved, I could connect with a lot more people. That was a big part of improving the club, because as my leadership improved and my Spanish improved, we went from a low performing health club in Houston to doubling what our sales targets were in nutritionals and in personal training and in membership sales. It showed me that that daily growth is really how reinvention or how change happens. And then along the way, something unexpected happened. That same idea that growth was a process helped me realize that that degree that I had walked away from was more than a piece of paper. That was part of my growth process. That was something that I needed to go back and do. So I went back and got my degree and graduated from Rice University. You see those real results come. You look back and think back at what you've been through. For me, it's running a health club, growing as a leader, and then applying those to learn Spanish and realizing that it's applicable. But I want for listeners to think about their own reinvention, to realize that it's not just a moment, it's a process, that you don't change daily, that you reinvent yourself and then make a commitment to what you want to change and what you want to grow in. I'll close with just one key idea. Reinvention is not one bold move. It's the decision you make to grow on purpose, to be intentional, to show up before the results do, and to make that commitment to yourself. Thank you, JB.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. That was amazing. quick, concise, and laid it out, just like something essential. That systems we build, it takes daily activities that you need to do, that everything changes, but you need to be doing it on a daily basis as well. Thanks you, Dr. Ben. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So here's what I want to explore next. What happens when the person going through a reinvention is you? When it's not your team, it's your own career. When, you look at things and things change, things get thrust upon you by a shifting industry. The emotional reality is the same, but you're standing in unfamiliar territory and you need someone who can help you see clearly. And that's exactly what our next speaker does. Keith Greer brings more than 4 decades of professional experience as an executive coach, family therapist, and leadership trainer. He's a graduate of Syracuse University's School of Social Work and a professional certified coach through the International Coach Federation. Keith has guided individuals, families, and organizations through transformational change using methods that are compassionate, strategic, and deeply human-centered. And in a time when career disruption can feel deeply personal, even when the cause is technological, Keith's work reminds us that reinvention is still at its core a human journey. So let's welcome to the stage Keith Greer. Keith, welcome.
There you go. All right. I have to master the technology. Good morning, everyone. At least good morning to those like me on the East Coast, talking to you today from Rochester, New York. As I was thinking about what I wanted to share this morning, an assortment of wonderful previous and present clients found their way through my head and heart as I've had the opportunity, the privilege to be in this conversation with an assortment of different people who, for different reasons, have just reached moments in their lives where their present professional direction all of a sudden is not what they thought it was going to be. Or maybe at one time it was and it's not anymore. Or as JB laid out, maybe there are just such shifts going on in their industry that they are going to have to rethink who they are and how they come at their work and what kind of work brings them joy and satisfaction. And so in thinking about reinvention, I often find myself in these conversations with clients talking about a first step in the reinvention process, and that's the step of realignment. If I'm going to move in a new direction, if I'm even going to assess whether I want to move in a new direction, how will I know which direction to move in? How will I know if I take the risk, if I make myself vulnerable in terms of giving myself permission, not even to make a decision, to even think about, consider a decision? How will I know it's right for me? Because we all know, for most of us, even if we're standing somewhere and it's not exactly right, it's what we know. And what we know is often comfortable, and moving off to the future to something we don't know, at least as of yet, can feel pretty nerve-wracking. And so in this realignment process, I have found through my career 2 pieces of information that if people have, it helps. Doesn't make it perfect, but it helps this realignment. Am I going to move somewhere that will prove meaningful to me? And some of you, when you hear these 2 pieces of information, you're going to say, well, most people know that. And I do think on some level people do, but my experience is that very often as we go through our lives in how we relate to these two pieces of information, there's further work that can be done that can deepen our understanding, our self-awareness, which allows us to then take these pieces of information and use them in a much more productive and powerful manner as we are thinking about what might be next for us. And the 2 pieces of information that I'm talking about are our core values and our inherent strengths. So let's talk about core values for a second. So what is a value? A value is simply a philosophy or a belief that resonates so deeply inside me that when I align my choices and my decisions and my daily behavior to that philosophy, life feels good. It feels right. There's meaning, there's joy. It just is who I am. And so I find when I ask people a question of, well, tell me what your most strongly held values are. And in the world of values clarification, some would make the case that if we do enough values clarification, that we can often land on about 5 to 10 core values. I think of it as almost like our software, our drivers, again, that tell us that how we're moving through the world is right for us. And when I ask people about it, they might list a few things, but I often find that, as is the case with a lot of things, if people haven't really thought about it or been invited into this conversation, sometimes it's simply an issue of language, like what words even describe what these philosophies are. So there's a couple of ways you can go about identifying what your core values are. To begin, you can just even ask yourself a series of questions. Like if you think about people in the world that you admire, what is it that you admire about them? When you get maybe feedback from people in your life, what do people tell you they admire the most in you? I'm a grandfather of 3 grandsons that are at the center of my world, 6, 4, and 1.5. And I find myself thinking all the time, what philosophies, what beliefs do I want to leave with them, instill in them when I'm gone? And so these kinds of questions can shed some light on what's important to us. But I have an exercise I'm going to share with you, and I will make sure that you get the URL from my website where you'll be able to get your hands on this exercise. It's a fun, simple, but powerful exercise, and it's called the value sort. And what the value sort is it's a PDF with about 10 pages on it. And on each page, there are 10 values. Like some of the values are change and challenge and compassion. And on the top of the first page of this PDF, there's 3 little cards that say important to me, very important to me, and not important to me. So what you do is you download this PDF, you print it out one-sided, and you literally cut out all of these value cards, and you'll have a stack of about 100 different values. And what you'll notice very quickly is every single value in this PDF is positive. You then take this value, this stack of value cards, and you begin to sort them into those 3 categories: important to me, very important to me, not important to me. And you sort them based on nothing other than how it feels inside you. Does feel important to me? Does this feel very important to me? Sounds good, but maybe not a key value for me. You sort through all 100 values. What most people find is on the first sort, their very important pile can have 30, 40 values in it because all of these are positive and you will relate to many of them. But here's what you need to do. You need to sort and resort that very important pile until you get down to, I say get down to 10 to 15. Now, I said a moment ago, some would say our core values are 5 to 10. Get down to 10 or 15 values that feel like they are the most important ways of being that represent who you are and how you want to be. Part B, very important. Take each of those values in that very important pile and ask yourself the following question. If someone monitored my choices, decisions, behaviors every day for the next 30 days, what would they see that is evidence that I honor this value, that I bring it alive? Because it is one thing to say, I want a certain value in my life, like let's say acceptance. But if there's no evidence that I'm acting on it, then I'm not benefiting from that value. Or maybe it's not a most important value, it just sounded good. Or one of the greatest definitions of stress that I have ever heard is when we're stressed, we're often being blocked from living one of our core values. I did this exercise a number of years ago with a client of mine who is a business owner. And one of the values in here is solitude. And that was one she chose for her core value. And I sent her home after a session with that part B. Okay, come back next time and let's talk about the evidence. She walked into my office the next time, sat down and just started crying. And she said, Keith, I can't find solitude anywhere in my life. So what does that mean? Well, it could mean sounds good, but maybe not a core value, or it is. And she's not acting on it. And then that led to a conversation about what's the cost. And a portion of the cost had to do with her work and the demands of her work. And sometimes some of the challenges she had setting boundaries or saying no. And over the next year or two, she did a ton of work in carving out solitude time because it was something that she very much needed in her life. And so imagine as you are thinking about, do I move in a new direction professionally, how helpful it could be to have these series of philosophies in front of you where you are able to ask yourself, all right, will this new direction allow me to live these or live as many of them as possible? So core values, very important piece of information. Second piece of information that is incredibly helpful are your inherent strengths, your talents, your skills, your positive attributes, positive characteristics, gifts to the world. Now, this I find is a fascinating conversation with human beings, because if you ask people to tell you what is wonderful about them, man, they look down, they shuffle their feet. Well, I don't want to be boastful. I don't want to be full of myself. And what I find time and time again, and I don't know what it is about the human experience, it seems to be really difficult for people to give themselves permission to say, here's what's awesome about me. Because what are strengths? Strengths are simply the tools in our toolbox that we call upon to, especially when life presents challenges. And reinvention, considering moving in a new direction, is a significant example of a challenging moment for us. So I created this exercise years ago. I continue to do it with almost everyone I work with because it seems to be really challenging for people to do. And that challenge seems to tell me that it might just be relevant. So here's my challenge to all of you. Can you sit down and create a list of strengths, skills, talents, positive attributes, positive characteristics? And here's the kicker. Can you create a list with as many items on it as you are old? Now, I don't have an ounce of research to support doing this. It's just something I came up with that I ask people to do. And it seems to be really challenging for folks to do, to come up with that list as long as you are old. So I have some guidelines that have proved helpful. So guideline number one, when you sit down to create this list, if you really struggle with it, phone a friend or phone some friends. Ask people who love you what's wonderful about you. They'll tell you, and put those items on your list. If you come up with an item and all of a sudden you hear in your head, like that pesky self-critic kicks in and says, Keith, that's not you all the time, write it down on your list. There is no rule that says we have to exemplify all of our strengths, 24/7, 365. If it shows up sometimes, write it down. Guideline number three, and this is really the key guideline to this exercise, maybe even in some ways more important than actually creating a list as long as you are old, is to come at the creation of this list looking at it through the lens of curiosity. Be curious about what your experience is as you try to do something like this. What do you hear in your head? Do you hear the, don't be boastful, don't be full of yourself, oh, if people only knew me? Do you hear some of that self-critic, which, by the way, is just a part of the human experience? I don't know anyone who doesn't have it. One of the cool things about being a little bit more insightful about your strengths is a strategy to counter your self-critic is you can argue with it. You can debate your self-critic with the evidence you have in front of you. Here are my strengths. Give yourself permission to be thoughtful about doing this. And if for some reason you don't come up with a list as long as you are old, fine. I bet you still have more on the list than when you started. Now, I will tell you, I'm a few weeks away from 67. I have a list on my computer with 66 strengths on it. About to add one come the 18th of April. But here's the important part of that list, because my self-critic is as loud as anybody, especially during times of transition or challenge. I don't think a month goes by that I don't pull up that list and look at it and just remind myself, all right, Keith, what are the tools in your toolbox? What can you call upon at this time, at a challenging time, at a time of transition that you know works for you? Because it can be very easy to forget that when stress hits and we're in the more emotional part of our brain and we're not thinking with our usual level of clarity. Core values, strengths. I want you to imagine sitting down as you're thinking about different professional directions you might move in and what those directions will ask of you, how you might be able to filter those options through these two pieces of incredibly important information to help determine, is this direction I'm considering, what's the evidence that this direction I'm considering will increase the chances that more often than not, I'll be able to honor these values, these key philosophies, that I'll be able to call upon these natural, inherent ways of being, my strengths. It is not the be all and end all to this conversation, but it is, I have found two pieces of information that can just be incredibly helpful. I will make sure that we put into the chat the URL for my website. You can go there to the resource page. You can download the value sort PDF and the directions for a strength list as long as you are old. And listen, if you decide to do either or both of those, drop me a line. Let me know how it goes. I love hearing what this experience is like for folks. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. I really appreciate it. And what I will tell you is, having been a coach and mentor in my career as well, I've followed the same process, understanding core values and everything. And in fact, if in my experience as yours, if more people did that more often, we'd be in a much better place.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So thank you so much for doing what you do and bringing us an alignment, helping people align themselves with those values and strengths. So I strongly recommend everybody take advantage of the offer that Keith is giving you. You know, get that resource about your values. Understand what that means for you, because in times like now, where we're in this massive transition, you need to really have that strength of character, we'll call it that, which is all about understanding these fundamental principles of who you are. So once again, thank you so much, Keith, for being here. Appreciate your knowledge and wisdom. Okay. So Keith just gave us some really great and important pieces of information, talking about, you know, how reinvention is something you choose, but navigating this quagmire really requires an understanding of your core values and strengths. But I want to shift now to something a lot of people overlook during their career reinvention, especially when that reinvention leads to starting a business, launching a new career, a venture, stepping into an entrepreneurship. And right now, with AI lowering barriers to entry and creating new categories of business, more people than ever are starting to make that leap. But excitement without structure is a recipe for trouble. And I've seen it happen. Believe me, this is my 8th startup I'm at, so I understand what problems that you can face when you make the jump, you build fast, and then you hit some road bumps and you're not prepared for them. You hit a contract dispute or an intellectual property issue. There's a formation problem, a bunch of different things that you don't anticipate. Well, Matthew Fornaro is a highly regarded business law attorney who's served entrepreneurs and organizations across Florida since 2003. He handles complex commercial litigation, intellectual property protection, business formation, and high-stakes contract disputes. But beyond the courtroom, Matthew is known for helping founders build legal foundations that allow business to grow with clarity, protection, and long-term stability. So in an era where reinvention is accelerating new ventures and their new ventures are launching faster than ever, Matthew's message is one every aspiring entrepreneur needs to hear. So please welcome Matthew Fornaro. Matthew, welcome.
Hello, JB. Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Glad to follow such a distinguished set of speakers.
Absolutely. Welcome. The stage is yours.
Thank you, JB. So as you pointed out, we were talking, a little bit about the metaphysical and the psychological and the mental preparation for reinventing your career or reinventing your business. Now we're going to talk a little more practical about how you actually do that from a business standpoint. And briefly, let me tell you about my own reinvention story. I've been an attorney for 23 years. I used to work for 2 large AmLaw 200 law firms. And I had the opportunity about 11 years ago to go to an even larger law firm and focus on what I was doing, which was representing big companies, insurance companies, and banks. But I had similar to what our previous speakers talking about, like a moment of clarity or a revelation, if you will, that if I ever wanted to do my own thing or go out on my own, that was probably the last clear opportunity I had at any point in my life anytime soon to go do that. So I decided to go out and start my own law firm, which I've now been doing for 11 years. And as part of doing that, I wanted to focus on helping entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses because I felt that they were underserved by big firms like where I worked at and by local firms out in the suburbs and things like that, because that's not what they really focused on. So that was my change. I started my own business. I had no business experience, no business acumen whatsoever. I just kind of went and leapt before I thought and did a bunch of, on the job training, trial and error. And now after 11 years, I think I'm pretty proficient at running my own business. But more importantly, I like to help the people who are reinventing their careers by starting their own businesses or by changing their business, buying a new business, selling a business, or whatever it is, handle that. And one of the things that you pointed out, JB, in your intro is that just like me, a lot of people leap into business without doing the necessary due diligence or preparation. And that is probably the most important part or the foundation of any great reinvention regarding business, entrepreneurship, or anything like that. So what I like to do when I represent my clients is, again, I represent clients across all kinds of businesses. I represent all kinds of size businesses, but I focus on smaller businesses and entrepreneurs. But what I like to do is make sure that they have a plan in place and make sure that they have the framework in place when they start out or when they transition or when they want to modify what's going on, to make sure that they are fully compliant and make sure that they have all the tools in place to succeed on the merits of their business rather than on the technicalities of other issues. So what does that consist of? Well, when you start a business, everyone's very excited. Everyone wants to get into business. Everyone wants to succeed. Nobody wants to fail. People who work together or have partnerships or business affiliations, whatever, everyone wants to get along. Everyone wants to see the course out. But A lot of people, like I said, just jump into doing things without doing the necessary due diligence. So what is the necessary due diligence? Well, ideally, here's what you would want to happen. Before you even start a business, you would want to have a written business plan in place that says the who, what, when, where, why, and how of your business. It's basically the roadmap of what you're getting into. It's going to say what you do, what your business is about, how you're going to get money, how you're going to spend money, how you're going to add people, how you're going to subtract people, whether you're going to rent space, are you going to have internet access? Just everything is going to be in that written business plan. And that written business plan is meant to put pen to paper on your thoughts, your theories, your ideas to make them in a framework to become reality. And then the next thing that you should do after that, as part of your great reinvention of moving forward with your business, is you want to reach out to professionals who can help you. So again, a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs, they think that they have to wear every hat and do everything in their business, and that's not the case. There are a group of professionals who want to help you, whose whole job is to take non-business making decisions off your plate so that you can focus on making those business decisions. So what does that mean? That means before you actually start your business, after you have your tentative written business plan and you want to consult with a business law attorney, you want to consult with an accountant, you want to consult with a professional commercial banker, you want to consult with a commercial insurance agent, you want to bring in a whole bunch of professionals to help advise you on how to go forward with your new idea or your new business or whatever it is you want to do. So they come in, they help you refine your written business plan. They help you pick out which business organization is best for you, because it's not one size fits all. From a legal standpoint, things can work, but from a financial standpoint, things may not work. From an insurance standpoint, things may not work. So they help you select the correct business organization before you even get started. So then you meet with them, you go over everything, you put together what it is you want to do, and then you go on to the next step, which is actually select your business organization. So when you select your business organization, you take the input from all those people and you figure out what's the best legally, financially, whatever for you to do. And then you go register your business organization with your local Secretary of State in the jurisdiction where you are at a state level. There's no federal corporation. It's all at a state level, or depending on where you are in the world, it's at a local level. So when you put that in place, then you come back and you work with me, the business law attorney, and we come up with the specific governing documents for your business. So if you're a corporation, you need to have bylaws. You need to have different corporate documents. If you're a LLC, you need to have an operating agreement. If you're a partnership, you need to have a partnership agreement. If you're a sole proprietorship, you need to have contracts in place for that. So we make sure all that's in place. And then you are properly formed as a business. You have all the necessary documents in place. You are now ready to proceed forward with your business. So does it end there? No, it doesn't. The due diligence and the preparation for the great reinvention continues forward. So now when you're in business, you have to make sure that you have contracts in place for every thing that you do. So what does that mean? That means if you have a relationship with another business, another person, another entity, you have a contract that governs that relationship that says who does what, who doesn't do what, who gets paid, how they get paid, and if there's a dispute, what the dispute resolution is. And depending on what business you're in or what platform you're on, it doesn't have to be an old-fashioned written contract. It can be terms of service. It can be disclaimers on an app, disclaimers on a website, disclaimers on an email, but it has to be in place so that when something happens, you have that to fall back on as to how you're going to regulate everything. So then you're up and running, you have all your stuff in place. Now you have your professionals who you draw on for advice. You have your attorney who you ask legal questions to. You have your accountant who you ask financial questions to. You have your banker who helps you figure out how you're going to get money, how you're going to spend money, or if you're going to have a corporate credit card account, if you're going to have a line of credit, things like that, you're going to have a commercial insurance agent who gets you liability insurance, errors and omissions insurance, reputational insurance, business interruption insurance. These are all necessary parts of your business going forward. So once everything's in place, you keep that framework in place, and now you're focused on your business, and all you have to do is make business decisions regarding your business. Everything else has been taken off your plate. The framework and the structure has been put in, and you go and you either succeed or fail on the merits of your business rather than on technicalities. And that's what I do every day. That's how I help entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses, people who wanted to either reinvent their careers and have their own business or their own livelihood or their own occupation. And I'm glad to do it. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm glad to help any of our listeners who want to do it or have any questions or need any assistance. And again, it's not just at the startup of your business, it's throughout the life of your business that you start. You always want to have your professionals on hand so that they can help you and assist you with your transformation and your reinvention from worker or from employee or from partner into solo business owner or bigger business owner. And it's an ongoing experience. And that's essentially it. That is my take on the Great Invention or the Great Reinvention from a business law standpoint. And again, we have JB will tell you, you can come to my website, Fornaro.provides. I have all kinds of stuff on there to answer all of your questions regarding whether you want to transfer into business, whether you want to do things in business, whatever it is you want to do, the answers are on there. If not, feel free to email, call me, reach out to me on social media. And again, thank you for having me here. JB, great job.
Oh, well, Matthew, thank you for being here. This is in times of great transition, and starting a business is a transition for people. Whether you've done it many times, as I have, or you're transitioning from a W-2 position into a new position, a new business, you need to really follow these key points that Matthew has identified. So I strongly recommend you. I mean, I've been to the website already. There's lots of places. He's got tons of resources for you. Schedule a call. You can see right here that you can download a book. There's resources on the website that you can get almost any type of information about your small business that you need to have to get it set up in the right way. Because reinventing yourself requires, and I'll say this, that's a pretty strong word, requires, but it requires you to be aware of things that you're not aware of right now. So take the advice of somebody who's been there and somebody who's willing to help you. Go to his website, download the resources, and move forward with it. So, Matthew, thanks very much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, JB. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, Matthew's just showed us the practical side of reinvention, that building something requires smart structure and legal clarity, not just passion and momentum. But now we want to go somewhere deeper, because every single person watching this, every one of you who has ever felt the pull towards something new or felt the ground shift beneath your career and then talk yourself out of making the move, I want you to listen closely to what's coming next, because there's a reason you stayed put, and it's not because you lack talent or ambition. It's because your brain, your actual neurology, has a pattern designed to keep you exactly where you are. Even when where you are isn't working for you, it's still there. So when you add the uncertainty of a world being reshaped by AI and rapid technological change, your neurological resistance goes into overdrive. The unknowns become bigger, the fear gets louder, and staying in outdated roles starts to feel safety, even when it's anything but. Pat Schultz is a renowned speaker and thought leader on reinvention, courage, and the neuroscience of change. Her work explores how the brain's fear patterns keep people trapped in outdated roles and identities. And more importantly, how courage becomes the essential skill for navigating uncertainty and stepping confidently into these new possibilities. So in today's moments of where industries are being reinvented, Pat's message couldn't be more timely. The biggest obstacle to reinvention isn't out there, it's between your ears. So let's welcome Pat Schultz. Pat, welcome.
To our audience, I have a very important question. Do you want to know the secret to success? Now, if you do, let's see a yes in the comment section. Do you want to know the secret to success? I don't see any yeses yet. Well, I'm going to share it with you because I know deep in your heart you yearn for success. So here is the secret to success. It is to do. Okay, I see some yeses. Good for you. Good for you. We have some brave people who are willing to say, yes, I want to know the secret to success. Here it is. Listen carefully. The secret to success is to do whatever it takes to get what you want. Do whatever it takes to get what you want. Now, to be clear, whatever it takes does not mean anything illegal or immoral, unethical, or something that would be harmful to another person. What it does mean is that you must decide that you are willing to get really, 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 really uncomfortable. And not just once, but over and over and over and over again. Because the only way to succeed, the only way to grow is to step outside your comfort zone. Your reinvention resides outside your comfort zone. Did I burst anybody's bubble? You can admit it in the comments. Were you hoping I would say there's a kinder, gentler way? I wish I could tell you your brain was designed to help you succeed, but that just isn't the way it is. Your brain is not wired for success. Your brain's not wired for happiness. Your brain is wired for one thing and one thing only: safety. And safety feels comfortable. But let's be honest, safety doesn't make you want to leap out of bed in the morning. Safety doesn't light up your dreams. Safety keeps you stuck. Now think back to when you were a little kid and you were learning how to ride a bike. And at first, your conscious mind was really excited. I want to do this. You could see yourself riding your bike down the street, just like all of the other kids, especially the big kids. But your subconscious mind had old programming. It was saying, it hurts to fall. Wobbling is scary. This is dangerous. So what happened? The moment you tried to balance on that bike, your brain fired off alarms. Danger, stop, go back to safety. That inner conflict, the new idea battling the old idea, isn't weakness. It is your brain doing its job, trying to protect you. But as a kid, what did you do? You got back on the bike, wobbly, shaky, uncomfortable. And why did you do it? Because you wanted to ride that bike just like the big kids. Your desire fueled your action until one day the new idea, I can ride, finally replaced the old one, I'm going to fall. That's when riding became automatic, natural, even joyful. This is what goes on in your brain when you try something new. When you imagine a dream, you imagine your reinvention, your conscious mind is at work. But the subconscious mind is already full of old beliefs, habits, and emotions. When your dream tries to move in, it bumps into those old beliefs, habits, and emotions. And they don't just move over. They resist. They hang on for dear life. That's why change feels so uncomfortable. It's literally a tug of war inside your brain. Those old beliefs are strong neural pathways. The amygdala, which is your brain's alarm system, wants to protect you because what's familiar equals safe. So the moment you stretch yourself, the amygdala sounds the alarm. Go back, go back. This is why you procrastinate. This is why you self-sabotage. This is why you doubt yourself. And it's not because you're broken in any way. It's not because you're lazy. It's because your brain is protecting the old wiring. But guess what? You are not stuck with that old wiring. Every time you repeat a new thought or visualize your goal or take some sort of action, no matter how wobbly, you are building a new neural pathway. And at first, the old pathway is stronger. But if you keep feeding the new idea, eventually it bumps out the old one. And just like riding a bike, one day it clicks. The new behavior takes over. And now your thoughts, emotions, and actions line up with your goal. And that is when change happens and when it sticks. Now, rather than just talk about it, let's experience it together. You have the opportunity right now to participate in a live activation with other people who are listening from around the world. Now, how cool is that? Okay. Now, to participate, you must stand up. And what's so neat about this is when you stand up and you participate, nobody's even going to be able to see you because I'm the only one that's on camera and I'm going to do it with you. All right. So I am standing. Now, hopefully you are standing too. And as we stand here on our own 2 feet, we are in our comfort zones. Now we are literally going to step out of our comfort zone by lifting 1 foot off the ground and trying to balance. Okay, so lift 1 foot off the ground. Whoa, oh, whoa. Okay, my amygdala just jumped into action. Okay, that wobble you feel, that is your brain saying, this is new, this is different, this is risky, go back, go back. And yet, all of us were doing it. We're doing it anyway. Boom. In that very small action, we've just created a new neural firing pattern. We stepped out of safety. We rewired our brain, even if for only 10 seconds. And in my case, I think it was less than 10 seconds, or until you had to grab your chair for balance. Now, if you haven't already, you can put your foot down. Now notice, you didn't fall, you didn't fail, you simply got uncomfortable, and you survived it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the feeling of growth. And we just shared a moment of personal growth together. We replaced fear with capability. If you are willing to wobble in your real life, the same way you just wobbled here, even for 10 seconds at a time, you can change your entire future. Your brain will always whisper, stay safe, stay small, stay stuck. But your dreams, your goals, your future, your reinvention, they all live outside your comfort zone. So let me leave you with this. If learning to ride a bike when you were a little kid meant you had to wobble, scrape your knees, and get back on again and again until the new idea won, what makes you think success as an adult would be any different? So the question is, are you willing to do whatever it takes? Thank you.
Well, I got to say, Pat, this is amazing how you presented what can be a very complex story of how our brain works in a very simple way was brilliant. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And I will tell everybody who's listening, please take advantage of the opportunity that Pat is providing for you. You see it scrolling down at the bottom here. She has some really amazing insights on how to rewire your brain. And it's really critical in times of change that we live in today, whether that's forced on you or you're making those choices, to learn how to do these types of things. Rewiring yourself, evaluating yourself, turning those fears into opportunities to grow. Please take advantage of this. Go to the website, especially for those women over 40. Transform yourselves. Be the best that you can be. Anyway, thank you so much, Pat, for being here today. We really appreciate it. Okay, so we are now kind of coming up to our final speaker for the day. Pat just unlocked something I think a lot about, and it's really important, but now, once you override the fear, once you find the courage to step into something new, how do you make sure it lasts? How do you keep from rebuilding the same patterns in a different package? How do you make sure that the new career actually fits the real you, not just another version of what you think you're supposed to be? Our final speaker today goes straight to the root of that question. Denise Michelle, widely known as the self-love alchemist, is a transformational life coach, hypnotherapist, and trainer who has worked within the Tony Robbins ecosystem. Her work blends subconscious reprogramming, energy alignment, and deep self-love practices to help leaders reconnect with their authentic power. Through her global movement, she empowers individuals to lead with compassion, resilience, and purpose. And in a world that's constantly asking you to become something new, Denise's work asks the more important question first. Do you know who you actually are? So please welcome to the stage, Denise Mitchell. Denise, welcome. Oh, you're on mute.
Hi there, everybody. It's so great to be here. Thank you, JB. I appreciate your warm welcome. Well, we've had some incredible and really beautiful speakers. And when I realized that I was the last one in this talk, I was like, let's seal this with a bow. So just a little bit more. Thank you so much for introducing me, JB. My journey in healing has been for over 25 years. And I've walked this healing path through yoga, through practical psychology, the healing arts, blending spirit and self-love to help soulful leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives serve the world. Because ultimately, it's not about us. It's about who we're here to serve. And my own journey, it included overcoming mental illness, something called borderline personality disorder, extreme trauma, addiction, anxiety, financial hardships. And through it all, I learned that living a vision-driven life is the ultimate act to self-love. This is the place where dreams come alive and true transformation happens. I want you to imagine this, your vision. Think about it like a compass. It's what pulls you forward when doubt and fear start to show up, because it happens to all of us. And without it, well, you're just reacting to life. Can anybody relate to that? With vision, you learn to design a life and a future that you love. And it's not just living a life by default. 17 years ago, I made a bold decision that changed everything. I left my corporate job. I went into treatment to heal myself, and I never went back. I became a yoga teacher and opened a yoga studio. I served thousands over a 6-year period, and it led me to what I'm doing today. But it wasn't easy. You see, I was stepping into the unknown. I was leaving behind stability and security. But deep inside, I knew that I was meant for more than just a paycheck. I was hungry for purpose. I was hungry for a life that aligned with my soul and my values. And then after running my yoga studio for several years, I didn't realize the cost that it was taking, and it was my health. I worked 7 days a week for 5 years straight, and I eventually burned out. And that was my wake-up call. In 2018, I took another big pivot and I transitioned into the coaching world because I actually knew that was what I was supposed to be doing, serving and supporting people in this way. And coaching and healing others allows me to serve on such a deep level, honoring my own well-being. And this is how I ultimately became the self-love alchemist, because it's self-love, self-care, and self-healing. And this journey taught me that transformation, it's not always a straight line. Actually, sometimes we have this vision that we're going to get from here to here, and we have these big dreams, and we're so excited. But it's this before we get there. And one of the greatest things I did learn from my mentor, Tony Robbins, is that entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey. And sometimes we have to hit pause. We have to reflect. We have to pivot with courage to create a life that truly supports you. And becoming an entrepreneur, it's not just a career change. It's a complete reinvention. And I consistently, and I think that I feel like all of my fellow speakers here also would agree, it's showing up again and again and again. It's not playing safe. It's embracing uncertainty. And it's doing things with courage, meaning you are stepping in when you're afraid. I learned to say yes and to new opportunities, even when fear showed up. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. But these leaps that I've taken in my life, they've taught me to start over at any age. That it's possible when you commit to your vision and you pivot with that courage. And it's learning to trust yourself and taking imperfect action and knowing that your past does not define your future. So let's talk a little bit more about skills and starting over, because it's not about just picking up a hobby or just changing jobs. Transforming your life is about breaking those old patterns, embracing a mindset, and embracing yes and then learning to live with truth. And this is the authentic self. Activity without purpose is the drain to a life of fulfillment. And so many people, maybe you know them, live trapped in their old habits, repeating the same cycles over and over again, expecting different results. But true transformation, it demands breaking those patterns. And just like Pat was talking about earlier, it lives in our brain. And we need to learn how to create new neural pathways, because it is a mind-body connection. It is learning how to rewire not only your mind, but your nervous system. It means identifying beliefs and behaviors that no longer serve you and choosing to replace them with new empowering ones. And when we break these patterns, I'm not saying by any means it's easy, because it takes awareness, it takes commitment, and here's the secret. You don't have to overhaul it all at once. This is the key. Small, consistent actions create momentum. And when you decide to change, your brain rewires itself. You become the architect of your future, not a prisoner of your past. So let's talk a little bit about mindset. And this is the fuel that powers your transformation. And I call it yes and thinking. Lots of people live in either or. Either I can do this or I can't do that. Nothing is impossible. If we learn to look at life from an expanded perspective, yes, and here is how I can take another step today from where I am. It's a very simple shift that expands your possibilities. It shows you that there are no obstacles to the opportunities except for you. And then you turn fear into curiosity. Every yes that you say to yourself, this is where your future starts to become unstoppable. And that, excuse me, that momentum, it's not enough, right? Because you must continue to pivot with courage. Starting over, no matter what it is, if it's a job, if it's a relationship, if it's your health, it does require courage. It requires guts. And it's know that you're going to fail. But failure is feedback. Failure is showing us not this way. There's another way. And fear is going to show up. And fear is your compass. It's pointing you towards that growth. It's not saying you can't do something. It's just saying, I haven't done this before. And when you lean into that fear, you break through your limits that you never thought were possible. So your age, your experience, your story, these are your greatest advantages. They give you the wisdom to pivot smarter and stronger. And I want you to know that it is never too late. That you can learn new skills, you can reinvent yourself, you can create a beautiful life at any stage. And I've helped people from their 20s all the way into their 70s transform their lives. So just know that all it truly takes is you opening up this piece of your mind saying, maybe it is possible. And when you start to build little by little by little, because what I've learned is those tiny little baby steps, they still get you to the top of the mountain. So the one question that you really need to have for yourself is, are you ready to break your old patterns, say yes and to your future, and pivot your life with courage? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, Denise, that was wonderful. Yes, and it was beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much. I want to encourage everybody. You'll see it scrolling down at the bottom. Denise is generously offered to give you a visioning session. So go down there, take a look at the link, apply for the visioning session, because one of the most important things that you can do is understand that about yourself. Okay, Denise will be able to help you do this in a way that many people would not be able to do. So do that. Go to bridgethelove.com. Take advantage of this, because right now we live in a time of great upheaval. But that fear that you had in the past doesn't have to be your present or your future. Embrace it. What do you think, Denise?
Absolutely. That's what it is. We get to create our lives. It's like a canvas, right? And we get to paint it.
I love it. Thank you so much. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do. We've had an incredible set of perspectives today. We've been circling the same fundamental tension from 5 completely different angles. All of the speakers were awesome. And running through all of it is this one reality that we can't ignore, that, technology and business is accelerating the timeline and all of this change. It's compressing the window between, I should probably think about making a change, and the change is already here. So what I'd like to do is bring everybody back on stage and have us talk about one fundamental question. So we're going to see if we can bring everybody on. Yay! Come on in, bud. There you go. I love it. All right. So, so what I'd like to do is put the question to everybody. Reinvention used to be personal choice, but today it's not necessarily that way. And given this reality, where do most people break down in the reinvention process? And from your perspective, what's the one thing you wish they would do differently? And I'm curious, how this happens in systems and coaching, in blind spots, in neuroscience, or in the identity work beneath it all. So Dr. Clinton, let's start with you. Where do you see people break down when they're trying to reinvent?
Thank you so much, JB. I think what I see as the breakdown is that we get stuck on the technical skill. When we're doing a reinvention, we see that we've got to move into a different career. We've got to build these technical skills. And I want to say technical skills matter. They're important. My background's in education. And so I got to see year after year, hundreds of students graduate, move into the workforce. I worked with community colleges who saw the same thing. Working with employers, they gave us the same message. I actually got a chance to talk to a gentleman who is the hiring director and training director for the new LNG, liquefied natural gas pipeline that's coming right through South Texas. And he said, hey, we really appreciate that you're sending students who can weld. But truth be told, we can teach a kid how to weld. Can you get them to show up on time, to take feedback, to work with a team? And so that's the big message. We should make sure that we focus on those other skills. Like I said, the communication, the teamwork, because those are universal. I don't care if you're going to be a welder or if your pathway takes you into managing and really capitalizing on AI, those skills matter. And the great thing for all of us is that they're teachable, they're learnable. If we focus on building those, like Denise said, a step at a time, moving forward consistently, then we can build those skills and improve ourselves and reinvent ourselves in the way that we want to.
I love that. That's totally awesome. And before we move on, first of all, Dr. Ben, thank you very much. I wanted to make sure that everybody understood, because we didn't get a chance to do this earlier, and I wanted to make sure that we promoted you on this.
I appreciate that so much, JB. And I'll share, I wrote a book that's for high schools and community colleges, but the feedback I've gotten is that this is a book for everybody. It's about the employability skills that employers are asking for and the way that we should be teaching them without a new curriculum, how to just build them into our daily classroom. And it's transferable to building them into our daily lives. And if you've got kids, I'm using these techniques with my kids to make sure that they've got these skills growing up, because it's going to matter.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Ben. Appreciate it. So let's move on to Keith. Keith, what do you think?
So before I get to what I think, I just wanted to share something that popped into my head that Dr. Ben was just sharing about. There's a company I do a bunch of work for, and they're a high-tech company, but they always talk about all they want to do is find people who can abide by, they call it the adult contract. Show up to work on time, work hard, be teachable, right? Work on your own, work as a part of a team. And that seems to be challenging enough to find these days. They'll teach the other technical skills. But anyway, what I was thinking about, JB, was I was in a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a client of mine who is considering making some significant change, possibly leaving the company they have been employed by for a very long time. And one of the places where he was getting stuck was behind the concept of loyalty, that if I leave, I'm not being loyal. This company has treated me well. There's truth to that. He's worked there for a long time, but he is not happy. There's shifts taking place within the company, within that industry. It's not where he wants to be. And it has been so hard for him to just give himself permission to even think about moving and to redefine what loyalty means. I applaud that as a value and a way of going at the world, but in this case, probably has a little bit to do with some of the things that Pat was talking about, of staying pretty stuck and warding off vulnerability. And so what we talked about in conversation I found myself in before is how to take action before you act. Because I think where people sometimes go in their head is, well, I'm not happy. I either have to stay, again, back to even what Denise was talking about, either or thinking, either I have to stay or I leave. And I'm not happy if I stay, and leaving just scares me to death. And so what's taking action before you act? Taking action before you act is doing an assortment of things that were talked about today, that working with a coach, digging into what would be important to you, doing some exploration of what might be out there before you make any definitive, really big decision of, do I stay, do I go?
Mm, I like that. That's awesome. I'm sitting here recording this, right? So that's going to be a transcript that goes into one of my conversations with one of my clients here next week. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. Matthew, talk about it from your perspective.
I think what Dr. Ben and Keith said are great, and I want to expand on that a little bit, maybe bring it a little bit to what I deal with first on, integration of technology and things like that. I'm all for it. Obviously, the integration of technology and AI in particular is more prolific than ever, and it's only picking up pace, and it's in everything. So what I always tell people is, when they're dealing with technology and things like that, is obviously to embrace it and utilize it to the best of their ability, but make sure that they're always in charge of it. They quality control it, they check it, they fact check it, they proof it before they send it out into the world. That way you don't have hallucinations or issues like that. So I embrace the use of technology, the use of AI as part of, transformation, change in business, in your, private life or whatever, but just make sure you're always in charge. You don't let the technology get in charge. And then to touch upon a little bit about what Dr. Ben was talking about, I think one of the other things that you always will have to work on, no matter what it is you're doing, no matter how you reinvent yourself or what industry you get into or business or what you want to do, are, what we call soft skills, which are, like Dr. Ben was talking about, show up on time. I mean, your interpersonal skills, your attitude and your communication with others, no matter what kind of technology replaces people doing things or whatever, that's never going to be replaced. So if, you have a bad attitude, if you don't listen and think to what people say, or you are resistant to change or resistant to, constructive criticism or whatever you want to call it, or you don't know how to communicate with people, or you don't know how to have the correct interpersonal skills, those are things that are going to haunt you no matter what it is you do or you're trying to do. And that's something that you always have to work on. That's never going to be replaced by technology. That's never going to change, no matter what industry or what change in path of life you're going to do. So those are core concepts that always need to be focused on, and that you always need to work on and be receptive to change.
Yeah, I like that. I think you're absolutely right, Matt. What my experience also, it's rather interesting when you think about it. I run an AI company, and what I happen to know with all the different prospects and the clients that we have, people like to use technology as the easy button, right? Oh, I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to take care of it all for me. Because why? They're afraid of it, and that's what we kind of like to have, that equilibrium where everything is just kind of mellow, people can chill, and they don't have to worry about things and all that kind of stuff. But the reality ends up being, that's where life is. Life is that pendulum. It's moving back and forth all the time. And unless you're willing to embrace that and really create those new connections, then life for you is the easy button. Actually, I have this little thing here. No.
Forget it. No way.
So don't press the easy button. Don't do that. Be the person who actually does what Pat can tell you about. So Pat, why don't you tell us, what's one thing that you would wish people would do differently?
Well, I'm going to start with where I think it breaks down. And I think it was a famous football coach who said it's the start that stops most people. And I think it breaks down at the very beginning. I think people know they need to reinvent themselves. They know they need to pivot, but they don't do it because they're afraid, and they talk themselves out of it. And so that's where I think it breaks down. And I'm asked by people, well, what is the first thing that I should do if I want to reinvent myself? And I tell them the first thing they need to do is clear their mind of these limiting beliefs as to what is possible for them. They think that they're going to be able to achieve something, so they go after what they think they can do or what they know they can do. They don't go for what they really want to do. And so if you're going to reinvent yourself, you have to make that decision. You're going to do it no matter what. And don't talk yourself out of it. And clear your mind of what you are afraid of doing. Usually what you're afraid of doing is the thing you really ought to do, and take that small step in spite of what is happening inside of you. And remember, your brain is interpreting that first step as danger. It's not danger. There's no saber-toothed tiger out there. All right. It's discomfort. It's just the unfamiliar, and you can handle the unfamiliar.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome.
Okay, Denise, bring us home.
I love all these answers. This is so much fun. Everybody has such great perspectives on this, and it's, if you see it, it's all intertwining. So really, I would say, yeah, to seal this up, it's vision, right? So why do you want change in your life? What's your why? What is it for, really? And one of the things that I've noticed is that, yeah, okay, we might have this idea that we want to do something, but then they have to have all the pieces in place before they take the action. That's what Pat is talking about. If you embrace imperfect action, I call it done is better than perfect. Mm-hmm. You're going to start taking these steps forward. And yeah, you might make mistakes along the way, but if you don't make any mistakes, how are you going to really learn? So there's two types of action. There's ordinary action, which feels more like an obligation. And you're not really like connected to your why. But then there's inspired action. And this is the part of you that feels energized. This is like your spirit, your soul. This is the alignment. This is the part of us that feels unstoppable because it's connected to your deepest desires. And yeah, okay, so technology is here. We know that. And it's going to keep reshaping our lives. But what will create that lasting transformation is continuing to connect to the vision and continuing to take inspired action along the way, all connected to the why.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, what a conversation. You know, when we started today, I put a question on the table that I believe sits at the center of everything we discussed. And it's when the career you've built no longer fits the person you've become, what do you actually do about it? And I will tell you, our speaker showed us that question now has a companion nobody gets to ignore. What do you do when the career itself is being reinvented around you? And the answer, it turns out, is the same either way. I mean, Dr. Clinton reminded us that reinvention doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens inside systems. And those systems either prepare people for what's next or leave them behind. Keith showed us that transformation is a deeply human journey. And the right guide, those core values, can help you navigate what you generally don't see up front, right? Especially when the change wasn't your idea. Matthew gave us the practical wisdom to build smart and protect what we create, because reinvention without structure is just risk. Pat opened up the neuroscience and proved that the fear we feel isn't a flaw. It's a feature of the brain that can be overwritten with courage and with conviction and trying. And Denise brought us home with the truth that lasting reinvention, the kind that doesn't just change your title, but changes your life, requires reconnecting with who you actually are. And here's what I want to leave you with. Whether you choose reinvention or reinvention chooses you, the path forward runs through the same territory. It requires alignment with your values. It requires the courage to act. It requires smart structure and the right people beside you. It requires the willingness to look beneath the resume, beneath the role, beneath the identity you've been carrying, and ask yourself honestly, who am I becoming? And does this career serve that person? Now, I know that question well. I've asked it of myself. I asked it when I left Apple. I asked it every time I sit across from a business owner who's watching AI reshape their industry and wondering what comes next. And the answer is always the same. What comes next is whatever you have the courage to build, as long as you build it on a foundation of who you really are. Yes, technology is going to keep changing. Roles will keep shifting, but your values, your purpose, your humanity, those don't become obsolete. Those are the things that reinvention is really built on. So if you're sitting out there right now feeling that quiet pull or feeling the ground shifting underneath you, don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the fear to pass. And don't mistake staying still for staying safe. The career you were meant for is on the other side of one honest question and one courageous step. So thank you for being part of today's Global Speakers Talk Monthly Summit. I'm JB Herrera. And until next time, stay aligned, stay courageous, and keep building. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, JB.
Together we are Global Speakers Talk.